Welcome back, everybody. I'm really excited for this detailed examination we're doing today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we're going to be talking about something that I think is really practical for pretty much everybody listening.
Okay.
How to support other people within a community.
Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
we're going to be focusing on the idea of Christian brotherhood.
Well, in this case, the information focuses on a passage from 1 Thessalonians 5.14.
Okay.
It lays out a framework for putting love and support into action.
You know, I think about that a lot. Like, how can I be more supportive of other people?
Yeah.
But I really struggle with where to even begin.
Right.
So I'm really glad that we're going to be talking about this verse because it lays out 4 specific actions that we can take.
It does. It gets into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
The verse says, "We urge you, brothers, to warn the disorderly, speak consolingly to those who are depressed, support the weak, be patient toward all."
You know, it strikes me how active all of those verbs are.
Yes.
Like, it's not just a suggestion, it's like a command.
Absolutely. There's a sense of urgency there that we need to be taking care of each other.
Yeah.
And it's not about being judgmental or condemning anyone.
Right.
It's about being concerned and wanting to build each other up.
Okay, so let's go through each of those 4 actions one by one.
Sounds good.
The first one, warn the disorderly.
Uh-huh.
That feels kind of sensitive. How do we approach that topic lovingly?
I think you have to balance compassion and being direct at the same time.
Okay.
The information says that it's important to approach these conversations humbly and with tact.
Yeah.
Because the goal is to restore and reconcile.
So you're addressing the issue, not condemning the person.
That's right.
But are there times when we need to establish boundaries?
Sometimes you have to, especially if someone's actions are hurting themselves or others, or if they're just being disruptive to the community.
Right.
The information says that sometimes tough love is the most loving thing you can do.
That's a good point. Okay, the second action is speak consolingly to those who are depressed. And, you know, it feels like there are more and more people who are struggling with these things, like depression and anxiety.
Yeah, it seems like it.
So what does the information say about that?
It stresses how important it is that we recognize when people are suffering and that we address those emotional and spiritual needs.
Okay.
It's about being compassionate, offering encouragement,
Okay.
and connecting people with the resources and support they need.
Yeah, and that can be really tricky because sometimes you don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
So are there some things that we should keep in mind when we're trying to do that?
Well, one thing is to just listen without judgment.
Oh,
Sometimes that's the most helpful thing you can do. Just validate how they're feeling and let them know they're not alone.
yeah, and make sure they know we're not therapists.
That's right. If they're really struggling, then we should encourage them to go get professional help.
Okay, so we've talked about warning the disorderly and speaking consolingly to the depressed. The third action is supporting the weak.
Uh-huh.
How does weakness show up today? What does that look like?
Well, weakness can be a lot of things. It can be physical, emotional, spiritual, or financial.
Uh-huh.
It could be health problems or losing a job or family issues or even just problems with their faith.
So we really have to think about the individual person
Yeah.
and what they're going through.
Uh-huh. You need to understand their needs and give them the right kind of support.
It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
No, it's not.
So it could be practical help like errands or meals. It could be emotional support by listening, or it could even be spiritual support.
Exactly.
Okay, and finally we have being patient toward all.
Right.
And that's the one that I think I struggle with the most because we live in such a fast-paced world. No one really has patience anymore.
Well, it's true, but it's so important for building good relationships.
Okay.
The information says that everyone is on their own journey. We all have our own problems, and we're all growing at different speeds, so we need to be patient and understanding.
Yeah, especially when we're dealing with people who are different from us or going through a hard time.
Right.
So we need to remember that everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
We all need grace.
Uh-huh. We should be as patient and compassionate with others as God is with us.
You know, it's interesting because the information doesn't just give us these 4 actions.
Yeah.
It also draws this connection between our ability to support others and our own ability to forgive.
Oh, that's so important.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, the information says that if we're holding on to bitterness or resentment, it can actually make it harder to support other people.
Like that saying, hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah.
If our own hearts are full of pain and anger, how can we really care for someone else?
Like trying to pour from an empty cup.
Right.
The information talks about the parable of the unforgiving slave
Oh, yeah.
from Matthew 18.
Okay.
That slave was forgiven a huge debt. but then refused to forgive a fellow slave who owed him a much smaller amount.
Yeah.
And it ended really badly for him.
And that's a good reminder that forgiveness isn't just a nice thing to do.
Right.
It's actually important for us to be emotionally and spiritually healthy.
That's right.
And then that way we can actually be present and supportive for others.
So we need to think about whether we're holding on to any hurt or resentment that might be stopping us from supporting the people around us.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It takes a lot of work, but it's worth it.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about these 4 actions in 1 Thessalonians. And we've talked about how important it is for us to forgive others.
Right.
But how do we actually apply this, in our everyday lives?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
But the information does have some good ideas.
Okay, so what's the most important thing? Where should we start?
It says we need to start by being empathetic and understanding.
Okay.
It's about listening to people and seeing the world from their point of view.
So we shouldn't just jump in trying to give advice.
No.
We need to make sure that people feel safe to share what they're going through.
Exactly. Everyone has their own problems and their own struggles.
Right.
And sometimes just being heard is enough to make someone feel better.
So it's not about feeling sorry for somebody.
Right.
It's about putting yourself in their shoes.
That's a good way to put it, stepping outside of ourselves and our own ideas so that we can connect with people on a deeper level.
Okay, so empathy is the foundation.
Yes.
What else does the information say?
It talks about being proactive about reconciliation. If there are conflicts or misunderstandings, we shouldn't let those things keep going.
Okay.
We need to address them humbly
Yeah.
and really want to restore harmony.
That can be so hard.
It is. Sometimes it's easier to just avoid things.
Oh, yeah.
But we can't have real unity if we're not willing to be peacemakers.
Right.
We need to care more about our relationships than being right.
Yeah, and choose forgiveness.
Exactly. It's not about agreeing on everything,
Right.
but about moving forward together, even if we see things differently.
And that's where forgiveness is so important.
It really is. When we can let go of past hurts and give people grace,
Yeah.
that's when real healing can happen.
Okay, so we've got empathy, reconciliation. What about actually doing something to support someone? What does that look like?
Well, the information has a lot of practical examples.
Okay.
Like helping with errands or cooking meals or watching kids. You could also help someone financially or just be there to listen when they need to talk.
You know what I like about this is that it doesn't have to be something big and dramatic.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes just a little act of kindness can make a big difference.
That's true.
So it's about being aware of what's going on around us.
Yes.
And being willing to help out in any way we can.
And being patient.
Right. Because sometimes people need time to work through things.
Exactly.
And we need to be patient with ourselves, too, as we learn how to better support others.
Yeah, patience is so important in this whole process.
Yeah, it is.
It allows us to help without judging.
Right.
And to have grace for ourselves and everyone else.
I'm also seeing a theme of intentionality here. It's not enough to just want to help. We have to do something about it.
You're right. We have to make a conscious effort to put others first.
And actually follow through.
Yes. Make it a habit to think about what we can give instead of what we can get.
The information also talks about how important community is.
Yes, it does.
Like, we need other people in our lives.
We do. We're not meant to be alone.
Right. A good community gives us a sense of belonging.
And a safe place to share our struggles.
And support when we're feeling weak.
Exactly. It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
I love that.
We can do so much more when we work together.
Okay, so what if we have someone who just keeps acting in a disorderly way? Even after we've warned them and tried to help them, what do we do then?
Well, the information says that we should go to the leaders in the community for advice.
Yeah.
The elders or someone who has experience in these kinds of situations.
So it's not about ignoring the problem
Yo.
or letting people get away with bad behavior,
That's right.
but going about it in a loving way.
And sometimes that means setting boundaries.
Okay, what about when someone's struggling with depression? Does the information talk about that?
It says it's important to listen without judging
Okay.
and to encourage them to get help from a professional
Yeah.
and to pray with them and offer practical support.
So just be there for them.
Yeah, and remember that we can't be their therapist.
Right.
So if they need more help than we can give, we should encourage them to get it.
Okay, so we've covered empathy, reconciliation, practical support, patience, and getting help when we need it.
Right.
But before we move on, I want to go back to the idea of supporting the weak.
Okay.
What are some specific things we can do in our lives today to actually support people who are struggling?
It says we should pay attention and notice what's going on around us.
Uh-huh.
We could offer someone a ride if they need it, help out with childcare, or give financial support,
Okay.
or maybe just be there for someone who's feeling down.
So it's about seeing the needs around us.
Yes.
And being willing to help however we can.
And that's what's so great about community.
Yeah.
When we all come together and support each other, it's like a safety net.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, we catch each other when we're falling.
It's like Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much.
That's a great quote.
I thought so too. Really gets at what we're talking about here.
Uh-huh. When we work together, we can do amazing things.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of our detailed examination, I just want to take a minute to think about everything we've talked about.
Okay.
We've talked about the 4 actions from 1 Thessalonians
Right.
and how important forgiveness is,
Mm-hmm.
and the power of empathy and how we can actually support other people.
Yeah.
What's standing out to you the most?
Yeah. For me, it's that supporting others isn't just about doing good things. It's
Okay.
about really caring about people
Uh-huh.
and having compassion for them.
I love that it's about seeing people as individuals and responding with love.
Exactly. We're all connected.
Right.
And what we do affects everyone around us.
Okay, so as we move into the last part of our detailed examination,
Okay.
I want us to keep thinking about this.
Uh-huh.
How can we make supporting others a part of who we are?
Yeah. How can we make it a way of life?
And not just something we do every once in a while.
I think that's a great question. And the answers are going to be different for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. As we wrap up this detailed examination on supporting others in the community, it feels like we've talked about so much more than just what we should do.
Yeah.
We've really gotten into why we do these things and how to actually do them.
I think that's when it becomes real. You know, it's not about checking things off the list.
Right.
It's about letting love and compassion shape how we treat each other.
Absolutely. The information talks about how important unity is within faith communities, especially as they're getting ready for the memorial of Christ's death.
Right.
What do you think about that connection?
I think it shows how important our relationships are.
Okay.
Not just with each other, but with God, too.
Yeah.
When we reconcile with each other and build strong relationships,
Yeah.
it shows that we're committed to living the way God wants us to.
It's like we're mirroring the unity and love that Jesus showed us.
Exactly. And when people see that unity, it's a powerful message.
You know, we've talked about a lot of practical steps,
We have.
and it might feel overwhelming to try to do everything at once.
Yeah, I can see that.
So where should someone start if they want to put these things into practice?
I would say start with just one thing.
Okay.
Pick something that you feel drawn to,
Okay.
like maybe practicing listening or helping a neighbor, or even trying to fix a broken relationship.
Okay.
And then just focus on making that one thing a habit.
So it's about making progress, not being perfect.
Exactly. And when you start to see how much good that one thing is doing,
Yeah.
it will inspire you to keep going.
The information talks about the role of leaders.
Uh-huh.
So how can those in charge help build a community where people support each other?
It all comes down to leading by example.
Okay.
If the leaders are showing empathy and offering support and encouraging reconciliation,
Right.
then other people in the community will follow.
They have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
That's right. And they need to make sure everyone feels safe to share their struggles.
Yeah, that's so important.
If people know they won't be judged, then they'll feel comfortable being vulnerable.
And that creates a domino effect
Mm-hmm.
where everyone is inspired to show love and support.
Right.
Before we finish up, I want to ask our listeners something.
Okay.
Think about a time when someone really supported you. What made them so good at it? And how did their support affect you?
That's a great question. And I think it shows how support works.
How so?
When someone helps us, we don't just benefit from it.
Ah.
It makes us want to help others, too.
It's a beautiful cycle.
It is. And it gets even stronger when we add forgiveness and empathy.
So as we end this detailed examination,
Okay.
I hope you feel inspired to become a source of support for others.
Yeah.
Remember those 4 actions from 1 Thessalonians. Warn the disorderly, console the depressed, support the weak, and be patient toward all.
And don't think of it as just another thing on your to-do list.
Right.
This is about changing lives, including your own.
That's a great way to put it. Well said. We'll leave you with this. How can you put these principles into practice in your own way? What's one small thing you can do today to help someone? It all starts with a single step, and you never know how far it will reach.
It's been great talking about this with you.
Me too. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for listening.